Hey guys, this is Larkin Wilson for Anglers All, and today we're going to talk about where to find trout in small streams. Today we're going to go over the ins and outs of small stream fishing, where trout hide, what to look for, what they're looking for, and how anglers can adapt to the situations they're seeing on the water and put fish in the net. To start, when we're thinking about small stream fishing, let's think about the prerequisites that trout have for the habitat in which they want to live. There's a few things that they look for right off the bat. One, they want to find places where they can hide out from the current and save their energy. Number two, they're trying to find a good place where they can hide from predators. The third thing is finding a place with a readily available food source. Our holy grail hiding spot for trout is a place where they're hidden from predators. They have a place where they can find relief from the current and not have to expend all the energy to maintain their positioning. And three, somewhere where both of those first two factors are in effect, but they can also capitalize on a steady stream of food flowing down to them. So now that we understand a little bit of the psychology behind what the trout are thinking when it comes to their holding positions in small streams, we can work backwards from there, right? But there are a couple of other factors that come into play that are mostly seasonal and also conditional. Factors like water temperature, current weather conditions, the structure of the stream, and available food sources. Now that we understand what the trout are thinking and what the trout are looking for, let's take a look at a couple of the places that you should be looking for trout in small streams to begin with. First and foremost, and the most obvious to everyone watching this video, are the pools. Pools are the easiest to identify and the easiest to fish. They're fairly consistent in depth from front to back. You'll likely have structure in the middle or somewhere without the pool, and obviously the shape will be sort of a bowl where the water comes in from a pinch-off point and then shallows back out as it transitions out into a riffle or some sort of other structure. So when you look down to the bottom of these pools, a lot of the times you'll see trout down there at the bottom in the middle of these pools. And people have a tendency to immediately target these fish and not come off of these fish until they catch one. These fish in the middle of pools can be extremely difficult to catch because typically trout are only holding in the middle of pools. They'll hang out there because it's the easiest place to hang out. But when trout actually want to feed when they're in a pool, they'll either push up to the head of the pool where the water feeds in and changes speeds, or they'll drop back to the tail end of a pool where the water starts to pick up speed as it shallows out. The next important piece of structure is going to be cut banks. So this is not the most technical definition here, but how cut banks occur is when you have the banks of a stream over time, the soft lower portions begin to erode and the upper portions that are held together with vegetation hold together in more of a mat. What ends up happening is the soft under portions of a bank will over time erode with the flow, creating a cut bank where you have anywhere from a couple of inches to a couple of feet beneath a bank where water pushes in, and so do trout to find a hiding spot. Cut banks really are the ultimate holy grail hiding position for trout, especially in small streams. Trout will sit with their backs to the bank as they sit under these cut banks in the slower water and wait for food to funnel along the bank or fall in off the banks. So overhanging trees and foliage are a big one. Sometimes in mountain streams, you're not gonna find as much vegetation overhanging unless you're at lower elevations in the mountains or you're in more of an eastern or southeastern state. This overhanging foliage gives trout a sense of security from predators above, but it also offers them a consistent food source, especially during the summer months. So the next structure we're going to look for within small streams are going to be things like rocks and boulders. Anything that breaks up the current that trout can hide behind. So when you see a boulder in a stream, there's two places that you're going to look for the fish. The obvious place, which is right behind the rock, where trout can find refuge from the current as it pushes down, while capitalizing on the faster water funnels that are feeding food down to them. The other place that trout will hold when it comes to these midstream boulders is directly in front of the rock. And the reason is right before that water splits to go around either side, there's an area where the trout can sit enjoying a little pocket right in front of the rock, but they're also enjoying the benefits of having two streams of food in one place. Another place to look for is submerged trees, laydowns, stuff like that. If a tree comes down at an angle and it has a little open room between the stream bed and the actual tree itself, this is where trout will like to hide. The next place you're gonna look for trout in small streams are the riffles. The riffles are faster moving, well oxygenated stretches of water that trout especially key in on during the summer months, or really anytime the water temperatures begin to increase. Trout don't have to move very much to eat in riffles. They really have to only hold their positions and feed on the food that comes by them. This makes trout in riffles a little bit more reactionary than they are in pools, as they have to make split decisions on what food they're gonna eat and what food they're not. The major downside of riffles for trout is that it requires them to expend energy to hold their position. They might not have to move very far for food, but to stay in a place where they can eat the food and not move far, they do have to expend energy. On colder days, days where trout are feeling more lethargic, the riffles are really not going to be your friend. Then you're looking more into the deep pools, places with slower current where trout don't have to expend those calories. And something to keep in mind when it comes to riffles, they often get overlooked by anglers. Anglers will go directly to the pools and really pool hop on small streams, where if they fish the water in between these runs, they would be far more productive, because you would be surprised where you can find trout in small streams that hold in the tiniest pockets within riffles. You just have to be willing to look for more than anything else. And really the last thing to focus on are the seams and transition, right? Seams are just the areas where two different speeds of water flow come together. A good example is a tributary feeding into a main flow. That tributary coming in is either going to be slower or faster than the main flow, and the disparity between these two flows is what creates a seam. And what trout like to do is sit on the slow side of the seam in the water that doesn't require them to expend much energy, and then capitalize on the way the faster side of the seam pushes water and pushes food sources, in effect, down to them. So those are the places you need to look for: the transitions and seams, the in-stream structure like submerged rocks, submerged logs, overhanging trees, and then looking in places like riffles and pools, as well as cut banks. These are the places that we recommend people look for trout when they're starting to fish small streams. Again, removing the technical aspects of it is really what's important, because the more you overthink, the less you're gonna produce. Instead, look for these pockets, look for places trout can take advantage of the situations and the opportunities they have, and then execute on what you need to do to fish those stretches. Find different water, take notes on where fish are holding at certain times during certain conditions, and apply your knowledge over time, and eventually you'll get to where you can really master small stream fishing. So I hope this video was somewhat helpful for you guys when it comes to where to locate trout in small streams. It's not rocket science. It just takes effort, and it's just effort and execution based on our basic knowledge on where trout are holding and what trout are thinking as to why they're holding in the positions that they are. Because if we can reverse engineer what the trout are doing, we can always catch fish. Really appreciate you guys watching this video. I hope you got something out of it. If there's anything we can give you a hand with, please give us a call here at the shop, or however you'd like to reach out. Let's talk. Let's get you out on the water. Let's get you into some fish on some small streams.